Hello and welcome to the third episode of the OT Society podcast. As a disclaimer, everything mentioned and discussed in this podcast today is purely of opinion and not fact, and should not be taken as verbatim or reflection of everyone's experiences of practice. This podcast is intended to give occupational therapy students a better idea of the different areas of practice that are available in the world of occupational therapy. If anything that is discussed today upsets, disturbs or leaves you with some questions, please find the resources attached to the page or contact us at otsociety@gcustudents.co.uk. My name is Musa and I'm a third year occupational therapy student at Glasgow Caledonian University, and today I'm joined by Kirsteen, who is the owner of Activate OT and an occupational therapist who specialises in working with neurodivergent children. Before we start, Kirsteen, do you consent to this podcast being put on our YouTube and Spotify platforms?
Yes.
Okay, so let's begin. So what has been your occupational therapy journey so far?
So I've been qualified for over 21 years, so it's quite a lot of things, but actually OT was my second degree. My first one was I went to art school, and before that I did a diploma in spatial design. All of those things have actually proved to be really useful throughout my OT career. But I was teaching art as well as doing private commissions, and this is where I first met an OT. I'd never heard of the practice before that, and I was working with a group who all had physical disabilities, and there was a lady who had a stroke who wanted to come in and join, and the OT came in to set up everything for her, and that was my first introduction. I was like, what is she doing? Why is she doing that? I was immediately attracted to it. So that was me starting at that point. So this was like 10 years after I'd already qualified. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do that with my life. So that was me starting. And yeah, I then went back to university as a mature student. And completed my OT degree. And interestingly, unbeknown to me, neurodivergence wasn't something that was in my head. It wasn't really something that was talked about at that point. But being at university was actually my first introduction to neurodivergence as well, because there was people being tested for dyslexia. And I was like, what is this? What does that do to you? How does that impact you? So I was really interested in all that kind of stuff as soon as I knew about it. But what I did was, when I qualified, I went into community care, and it was a really steep learning curve because you suddenly got out there with new people and new staff, and suddenly you have to do all the problem solving, and it was tough. But I was fortunate to have a really good team around me, and they'd all had years of experience, so there was so many different people I could ask, and it was a really lovely team that I started in. So gradually I worked in community care across several different offices in central Scotland, and worked with people with so many variants of different conditions, physical conditions, mental health conditions, neurodivergence, learning disability. Usually it was adults, but I was working with some children as well, depending on what services needed. So lots of different things at that time. We're dealing with housing issues, working with architects, looking at major housing adaptations, assessing and providing care packages and small equipment. And it was also the start of adult protection. So I got to learn that as it came in, and on some occasions found myself leading some of the adult protection cases, which was not what I expected at all. But it's what happened, and it gives you really good understanding some of the legal processes that we're going through as well. So for some time during that, I also managed to get a little project where I worked with people with intellectual disabilities who were looking at employment. So we're doing all the assessing of what was required there, where were their skills, where could we get them some employment, and then working with the employers to help them integrate there as well. So that was a fantastic place to work. And unsurprisingly, along with intellectual disability, there was lots of neurodiversity in there as well. So I worked from several different bases, and that really allowed me to experience outcomes of disability in real life, because you're in people's homes, but also learning the impact of disability on their lives, the poverty that that can then create in some people's lives, and the impact of that, and the power of social inclusion. So all of those things became really, really important to me. When you see people really struggling with life just because of what has happened to them, or because of an illness or a disability they were born with, and you realise how injustice is a big part of our profession as well. So I've got a really strong sense of social justice within this. So I think that's probably something that you're taught about a lot now as well.
Yeah, we get taught a lot about it, and about like about the different types, as you said, kind of social justice. Oh my mind's going blank at the moment, but yeah, we're taught about all the different kind of ones, like occupational apartheid and everything like that, and how it affects people and their motivation to do occupation and everything.
Yeah. And when you see those kind of things firsthand, it's really powerful, because you see the impact right in front of yourself. And you see generations of families as well, all struggling with very similar things. And you begin to think, how are they supposed to get out of this? Yeah. How are they supposed to make it better? Because nothing's really set up to help that happen. So this is a really, really powerful place to learn. As a new grad, it's really complex. It sounds really easy, because you're going to go into community care and you're going to give it a few pieces of equipment. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's not what's going to happen. That will be a small part of it. But dealing with the complexities of what families need, what is the right thing for them, and weighing that up with what is actually physically available as well. It's a really, really tricky balance, but you're constantly trying to analyse activity analysis throughout, so you can find the best possible solution you can find with what you've got. So I did that for about 13 years, and then I decided I was going to have a change, and decided that I would go and work in NHS, because I felt that I had missed out on that. And after 13 years, that was quite a big jump to do. The language is really different. You're talking about the same things, but you talk about them in different ways. And so I had to learn this new language, and I started doing that by working bank to begin with. So working in some physical hospitals, getting that learning as much as anything. And then that's when I realised how transferable my skills actually were, and actually how beneficial working in community was for them working in a hospital, because then you absolutely understood what is physically possible and what people are going home to, and how difficult that might be. And then there was all the little nuances. Yes, I can give you all this stuff. Can you actually use it in your own home? What does it actually look like? What supports have you actually got round about you? So that it was a much richer scope that I had of practice, and much richer understanding, which was fantastic. Gradually, I moved to a large teaching hospital, and then I was able to do what I'd wanted to do in the first place, which was to experience all the different areas. So experience what it was like to be in medical, experience what it was like to be in orthopedics, in brain injury, in all of these different areas. So that was a fantastic way of learning. And it's probably one of the things I would say, if somebody's interested in that, is getting that rotation, so you can get all these little bits of learning, because you're going to build on that. And it's in some ways, it's probably a good place for a new grad to start. Maybe not 13 years after you've already been in it, but it was really, really interesting. And I was lucky enough to get into a team where we ended up being the team that would take on some of the most complex people, the people that were really, really difficult to get them back out of hospital. They weren't fitting into any kind of boxes, so we had to do a lot of problem solving. It took a lot of time, but that was really fun. So we had all of that going on. And then we had COVID.
Oh, no.
So actually, before COVID, I decided to take on a split post. So I was split between mental health and physical health. And the mental health part was in an autism team, which was my interest. Because during all of these years of being an OT, I had a family as well. And it turned out that there was differences in their development. So that meant that neurodiversity actually became part of my actual life. And you use your OT skills and you think, how am I going to do this? How am I going to teach my kids how to do this when they learn differently? And you bring in all those activity analysis skills. And I was able to do all of those bits, which was fantastic. But there was one area that I hadn't really had much teaching on it, didn't have much understanding of it. And that was understanding their sensory integration. And it's one of the things that kind of drove me to be able to run my own business, because the kids were referred to paediatric OT, and the one thing that I wanted help with was that area, because I'd done all the other bits that they could have done, and was unfortunately told, no, we don't do the sensory stuff. And I was handed a leaflet. Now, a leaflet wasn't good enough for me. I needed a much deeper understanding. I needed to be able to understand why they were behaving in the ways that they were. And that was really tricky. And it was quite hard to think, this is an area of practice by OTs that I know is available, but it's not available to me. So what I'd thought actually was, once I'm through all this and once I understand this stuff so much better, what I want to do is eventually be able to pass this on to other families, which is ultimately what I'm doing now. But it's also when I started doing postgrad learning and went on to get postgrad qualifications. So when I got those qualifications, then there was a job had come up in an autism team where we were allowed to do sensory integration therapy on the NHS with adults. And that was the most powerful, fun job. So much joy in that team. It was great team to work in as well. But COVID did come along and it changed everything for everyone, as we all know. So we couldn't do the sensory integration work because it's very hands-on. So all of that had to be pulled back, and we could do lots of things restricted the same way as everyone else. But also, as I was still working in the physical hospital at that time, everything changed overnight there as well. The whole hospital was rearranged. It was crazy with what had happened very, very quickly. But during that time as well, I was one of 3 people in the long COVID team. I was asked to come into dealing with the people that were getting COVID but really struggling to be able to get back home. So there was other people who would get it and they would recover and they would go back home, but there was this cohort where they just didn't quite make it, and nobody knew what was going on at that point. This was really early days. What it turns out that we actually did was we ended up being one of the first teams in the UK providing long COVID services. We didn't know it was long COVID at that point. We had to look at what was happening with the people, use all the information we'd gathered up in all of our practice over all of the years, and begin to analyse that and think, what might help? And there weren't any services at that point, and there was no research, so it's really, really difficult. And I don't think I'm ever likely to find myself in that position again. Hopefully not. And what we did was created lots of resources, and we started helping people. That was really, really powerful. So that was great. But my heart was in all the autism work. So it was round about the start of COVID time. Just prior to that, I'd been thinking about setting up my own practice. So I started to do that, and then gradually I did that, and that was really where I am now, which is, and I've been running it for 5 years. Started off very, very small, just kind of working from the boot of my car and going to people that way. And now I have a therapy space. We have an office. The other OTs here as well. So, it's grown quite a lot over the years. So yeah, so that's where I am, because I wanted to be able to support people in the way that I thought was the right thing to do.
Well, that sounds amazing. Like, your whole journey, it's been so like vast and different, and you do find, like, when you're still learning stuff, you do find what your niche is, like what it is that you want to do and enjoy, because it's different to the other ones, because you're just like, oh, I understand this more, I get it more, and because you kind of have like personal ties to it as a bit as well, it kind of further reinforces it, like, no, I want to help people that've gone kind of through similar experiences as myself and everything like that. So wow, it's just been amazing. So what is you kind of touched on this a wee bit, but like, what's the field you'll be talking about today?
So neurodiversity is my interest. So it's a neurodivergence of, typically the people that I work with are children, teenagers and young adults, so sort of ages 3 to 25. I'd say typically, because sometimes we're slightly out with that, but that's okay. And typically people either they have a diagnosis of a neurodivergence, or they think they have, or some of the problems are coming out. You don't need a diagnosis to work with an OT. What you do need is something getting in the way of you being able to do the things that you want and need to be able to do. So, and typically people nowadays have got a really good understanding of that. So that's why people come to us, and that's the area that I want to talk about.
So what is it like to work in this field? So what does kind of a normal day look like for you?
I think you probably hear this all the time. There is no normal day. You don't really know what you're going to have each day and how people are going to present when you're working with people. You never know what's going to come. So because I also run a business as well as do clinics, it means that some of my week is on business based stuff, and some of my week is clinical work. So on a clinical day, I will have several people booked in, and we will, if it's not assessment, if we're just doing therapy with them, then there'll be goals that have already been set. Then we'll be thinking about what are we going to be doing, and there's lots of different skill sets I bring into that. So we might be thinking about somebody's motivation to do something. We might be thinking about, is somebody actually struggling to do the physical movements to be able to do the things they want and need to do. So it really depends on what is going on for them as to what you're going to be doing. Could be their mental health, might be the physical health. There could be trauma. There could be so many different things that are impacting. And that's really what comes in each day. So that's why you never really know. You've got a bit of a structure, but you never really know what somebody's going to bring on that day. Have they been particularly dysregulated? Have they had sleep? Have they been able to eat? And all of those things have an impact on somebody.
Yeah. So how does the OT process flow in your setting?
So I use a process called, it's the DDDM process. So it's data-driven decision making. Doesn't easily trip off the tongue. But it's actually very much like the OT process that everyone will know about, but it's just been manualized so that we know we're going through all the different steps. So the first bit is identifying those strengths and participation challenges, and that's usually in some form of referral that somebody's come in with, and you're thinking, actually, is this right for us? Is this not right for us? So there's that initial call that I'll take. And usually it's a parent that I'm speaking to, and they're telling me about what's going on, what they've already tried, what's been helpful, what's not been helpful, what they would like from us, and we make a decision whether or not we can actually provide that. And if I'm not the right service, I will refer people on to different services. But from there, we're beginning to think, okay, so what are the strengths and what are the participation challenges? And really beginning to pull that out and thinking, okay, so if we've got these types of challenges, what kind of theory is going to help me understand these challenges? And there could be so many different areas that I'm thinking about. So we could be using really physical things. We could be, can somebody walk up steps? Do they know the motor movements? So we're thinking about the sort of biomechanics at that point. Or we could be thinking about somebody's having difficulty with dressing, with sequencing. We think, well, what's the underlying part of that? Could it actually be that they can't really feel where the buttons are? They can't really tell where the buttonhole is without looking at it? Or are they having problems sequencing things? Do they not know or understand what the next step is? So we're looking at all the theory, and quite a lot of the time I'm using an underpinning knowledge of sensory integration theory. So that I can then understand and analyse what's going on with somebody. But having such a big background of lots of different areas, I'm also thinking, is it poverty that's caused this? Is it lack of opportunity that's caused this? Is it disability? Is it carer stress? Is it trauma? What is actually going on? So you're really taking quite a holistic view on somebody. Next, we start to do a comprehensive assessment. So depends on the person as to what we can do. So for some of the people that I see, they have great difficulty following and understanding instructions. So we might do very play-based assessment. For some people who are able to do that, follow those instructions, then we might have more standardised assessments. Some of them will be filled in by parents, so we're getting their perspective. Some things are filled in by schools, so we get their perspective. And then it's obviously what we see within the therapy space as well, and how that person's functioning. So we bring all of that together to generate a hypothesis of what we think is going on for this person and what we might be able to do to help them develop those skills. And then we look at the developing and scaling of goals. And I don't think that's any different from what any other OT would do in any other practice. We might go through that quickly. Some of us go in a bit more depth. Develop, scale those goals. You identify what the outcome measures are going to be like, and then you begin to set that stage for intervention. And then you conduct the intervention. Once intervention's finished, you then measure the outcomes against and monitoring the progress. And if you need to do more, you do more. If you don't need to do more, you stop then. So it's really, that is the process that we follow. And I think whichever model you use, pretty much that's exactly the same process. This is just one that happens to be manualised so that you can then follow it.
Yeah. See, for the kind of referrals, and is it just people self-referring into your service, or is it like GP kind of referrals or anything?
So we get referrals from all over, actually. It can be GP, we've had social work, we have had other OTs in NHS have referred us into us, other like psychologists who are out working in private practice as well, they'll refer in. There's one psychiatrist we can work with as well. I work with other diagnostic teams, so they sometimes refer in as well. And parents can self-refer, and young people can, once they're at the age where they're physically able to do that, and they can maybe manage that on their own, they will self-refer in as well.
Okay, thank you. It's just to see that, and also, sorry, see the play assessment, what does that kind of look? Is it a specific activity that the child enjoys, or is it just kind of a general one?
So what we're doing is actually setting up activities that will allow us to gather information. So we're watching what they will go to, what they avoid. If somebody starts avoiding something that is typical for somebody to play with as a child, then what's that telling us? Why are they avoiding that? And then say it's something like a swing. So it might be the movement. And typically a child will play in a swing quite happily. So we know that that's a typical development type thing. Or they might ride a bike, or all those kind of, they're typical things that people will do. So we will actually have things in the therapy space that will give the person those opportunities to play with those things. So if somebody's ignoring them completely, we think, why is that? If somebody's going towards something, why is that? And then we try and introduce that in different ways. So say it's like somebody has a really strong visual sense. They might be more drawn to things that are very visual. So we might see lots of things looking out, lots of windows, but we also might see an aptitude with doing jigsaws. Can usually be really, really good at that, noticing those small details. We also look at what kind of strategies are they using to be able to manage their environment. Are they doing things to help them to organise themselves? Are they doing lots of lining up of things? What's actually going on? So we will usually something that moves. So we're finding out, do they feel safe when they move? Can they hold themselves up when they're moving? There'll be some sit down things, some physical things. Lots and lots of different stations of things, and we'll do it over a couple of sessions for the play-based ones as well, so as we can not overwhelm the young person with having everything out that's just too much, but bringing bits out, taking them away. Will they do some messy play? Are they completely avoidant of that? Then why? It's always the thinking of why is that? So that's how we do it. We have different things depending on what we've already heard and information we've already gathered from the people. We'll usually have some clues within that. So if somebody is really struggling with clothing, which is quite a common one, they're really sensitive to clothing, then we're wondering how is their tactile system actually working. So we'll lay out things for that to see what are they going to go for, or not, as the case may be.
Thank you. So the next kind of question is, what is the highlights of working in this branch of OT?
Well, I get to do what I want to do. I get to do something that actually means a lot to me. You see a massive impact on people's lives. You are able to help people when they're in quite a distressed state and help to calm that down. You get to work with parents as well as children. You're never just working with one person. Mm-hmm. It's a whole team around that person. You get to go in and out of different schools. That's quite fun. See how they're all run. And you get to play. That's got to be one of the best things. I get to play for a living, which is absolutely fantastic. I get to be really silly if I want to, and it's okay to be really silly in this environment. So all of those things are lots of fun.
On the converse of that, what are some of the challenges that you find in this setting?
Sometimes working out how the young person's going to present themselves on that particular day, especially if you have somebody who's been distressed for a while, and how are they going to present themselves. And it's actually kind of fun in some ways, because you end up having to really problem solve on the spot, change things very, very quickly, try out new things, and really do a lot of problem solving out with each session as well. And that's where it's really helpful having another OT here as well, because then you can have that collaborative part as well. But it is a real challenge, because we get some really complex young people who've got layers of trauma over the top of everything else that's going on for them. So many of them are out of school, not able to engage with lots of things, and that part it's horrible to see that part, and those things are really challenging to be able to accept that what we have for the education of our children is not meeting the needs for a lot of the kids that are out there. And it's really challenging to accept that and not want to change the whole world. But I am one person and I can't do that on my own. So some of the accepting of the limitations of what we can do doesn't stop me trying to go ahead and trying to do those things anyway. But that bit's really challenging.
I could imagine, because when you come out as a new grad as well, I'm thinking, like, you think, oh, I've got all this knowledge now, I can go out and I can, like, change a lot of things, and then you'll get there and then there's different kind of barriers in your way to stop that. And then obviously, as you said, the kind of personal experiences of some of your patients and stuff like that would add to the barriers and like kind of stop them from doing what they kind of need to and wanted to do, like as you kind of said.
Absolutely.
So you kind of mentioned this a wee bit earlier, but would you recommend working with neurodivergent children to upcoming future occupational therapy graduates?
I would. I think it's a really complex area. Mm-hmm. I think it's useful to have a good rounded experience because it's quite a specialist area. Mm-hmm. So it's useful to get other knowledge and understanding first. But if you happen to get a job in that, then amazing. I think it's a great area to work in. Mm-hmm. You know exactly where you are with a lot of these children because they will tell you exactly what they think. Mm-hmm. And they do not have any hidden agendas. They generally just tell you straight away, and that's one of the things that I love about it. So you need to be able to take that, because if they don't like what you've just done, they will tell you. Mm-hmm. And you will be under no illusions of anything you might have got right. You may be wrong in every way in their eyes, so be ready to take that, but also know, don't take it personally. Mm-hmm. Take it as oh, that's really interesting, what could I do differently? Mm-hmm. Rather than taking it on personally. I think with new grads, it is really, really good to get lots of different experiences. There's actually a new grad that I've been speaking to of recent who have said, look, we can do some stuff to build some of your skills because you're newly qualified. It seems to be a little bit tricky to get that first job mm-hmm. as well. And let's just build some of those skills. Let's just do this a little bit more. So there's a huge amount to learn in this area. You're not going to know all the answers. You might know one or two, and that's okay, because that's what it's like when you first start, and that's what it's kind of going to be like for a long, long time. So don't expect to know all the answers to begin with. You're not.
Yeah. So see, if somebody was looking to get into this branch of OT, is there anything specific that you'd kind of recommend them to do to better prepare for the role?
So I think understanding about the kind of the social part of neurodivergence, because there's a big social movement. So it's really useful to understand some of the implications around the adversity that a lot of people come across, that they're often told they're being lazy and just try harder, or they're badly behaved and they should just do it differently, and they should just pull themselves together and it's all them that's the problem. So understanding that kind of thing, that people end up feeling like they are wrong, they are the problem, and it's not about that at all. So we really need to think about that differently. So you can do lots of research on that, and I think that's a really useful thing to do. If you were looking to get into this kind of area, I would be trying to do some voluntary work as well, if you have that as an opportunity. Going to some of the places like NASA, National Autistic Society, and seeing if is there somewhere I can help out, is there something I can do to get that idea of just how diverse this area is. Also about gender identity, having a good understanding of that, about lots of different orientations of how people feel about themselves. That is incredibly important. It's a really big area, and it's really important to understand at least some of it, because a lot of, especially with the young adults, they will have been through quite a lot of trauma and self-discovery of themselves, and thinking that they're wrong, they're bad. How do I share this with people round about me? So all of that kind of stuff, all the kind of social stuff round about this, I think would be really helpful in working in this area. Of course, understanding stuff about sensory integration is going to be incredibly important. And understanding how our body actually works, what's actually going on. So going right back to our biomechanics, going right back to how those muscles actually work, how the nerves actually send information, thinking about the routes and the pathways, all the information around our body goes and does and understands. So a lot of neurology in there, really understanding that, incredibly helpful, because it allows you to analyse and it allows you to problem solve and think, well, how is that person going to be able to do that? So those are the kind of things. Those are quite big things. You're not going to know all, but just have a little bit of an understanding.
Thank you so much for giving such an amazing insight into this field of occupational therapy. It's been so interesting to hear about this branch of practice within occupational therapy. I'd like to thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. It's been great having you on. As mentioned earlier, if you found any of the topics discussed today distressing, disturbing, or would like more information, please contact us at otsociety@gcustudents.co.uk or find the resources attached to the page. Thank you for listening.